Hello everybody, this is a very special video. Why it's a special video? Because I have just reached 5,000 subscribers. And actually just a little over 5,000 subscribers because I've been busy taking care of things for our summer recital this year that we just finished on the weekend. It's a great time for everybody. But I wanted to take some time and come on here and thank each and every one of you for subscribing to this channel. It's been a pleasure to use this channel to help you with your own guitar journey and getting to know some of you in the comments. Now for this video I asked what were a few different things you wanted me to talk about, and I put a poll up on the community channel, and I was very surprised that a lot of you are actually interested in about me and about my own personal history. So I'm going to talk very generally about my own experience with the guitar, how I started playing, what I've been doing with it, and talking about my own history with it over the last about 30 years or so. So this is my journey with the guitar. So I started playing guitar when I was about 14 years old, just when I started high school. And I actually started because at the time I was playing a ton of video games, a lot of Super Nintendo or Super Famicom for those in Japan. And going into high school, I thought it might be a cool way to actually get to know some people, make friends and things like that. And I actually had an acoustic guitar that was sitting under my bed for about 3 years. I actually had received it from my older brother back when I was about 11 or so. And I played with it a little bit and I broke a string, and I had thought I had actually destroyed the guitar by breaking the string. So after that moment I actually never picked up the guitar again until I was about 14. So I started out by just learning music that was popular at the time. The Foo Fighters had just released their second album, so a lot of the first songs that I learned were actually Foo Fighters songs, Green Day songs. Song 2 by Blur had just been released as well too, and I learned that as well too. I just tried to learn as many songs as I could, and from there that just became an obsession of mine, just learning as many songs as I could, all of the different pop songs that were popular at the time, and it was all I cared about during high school. So the minute high school was done, I was rushing home to practice, to find some other stuff to learn. And then even when I was at school, if I had free time or a free period, I was actually in the music room just trying to practice the guitar. I was also playing drums at the time too, and I tried to seek out any chance I could perform as well, trying to play with some local bands. I joined a local indie band as well. I had some crazy hair and things like that. And then one day I was in the music room at my high school just practicing, and my music teacher came by and he said, "You know, you're always in here, you're always practicing. Have you thought about what you want to do after high school?" And at the time I had no idea. I was just thinking about the guitar. It was actually his recommendation that I applied for Humber College into the jazz music program. And I had never even heard about it or even considered it at the time. So then from that moment, that's something I started working towards. For that audition, there was a lot of requirements that you had to have under your belt. So things like certain scale knowledge, the ability to play a chord melody. Chord melody is playing the melody and chords of a jazz standard at the same time. Being able to play blues, having a solid knowledge of 4-part chords, so like minor 7 chords, major 7 chords, minor 7 flat 5. All of those jazz chords, and knowing how to read music as well too. So that's something that I started working towards. So while I was preparing for Humber College, I was still trying to do a lot of performing, doing some different events with my high school. We actually went over to New York City, where I actually received an award. And then at the end of high school came the Humber College audition, where I did not make it the first time. So during my audition, I did more or less everything pretty well, except for when it came for my music reading, where I was not that good, to say the least. I could even tell the person leading the audition at the time was a little bit disappointed, because it seemed like, I guess I had everything else ready. So from there I actually decided to just take a year and work on a bunch of other foundations, including my reading as well too, to be ready for the next year. And that summer I actually went to a guitar workshop camp where I met John Pelosi, who is an amazing guitar player. For those of you who like jazz fusion, that type of Holdsworth stuff, I highly recommend checking out John Pelosi. He's one of Canada's best kept secrets in terms of guitar players. So he helped me out immensely, not only with my reading, but also how to basically make a good impression at auditions. What type of things that you can show that you can not only meet the requirements, but you can surpass the audition requirements. That's something he helped me a lot with. So when it came time to do the auditions again, it was a clear pass. So then from there I entered Humber College. So Humber College, I compare that to like trying to drink from a fountain hose in terms of the amount of information that was coming to you at once. And there I had classes for ear training, music theory, music improv, composition, arranging, recording, stage performance. It was an intense 4 years, and in fact, in the guitar department in my first year, it started out with 20 of us, and by the time we got to our fourth year, there were only 4 of us left. So many people had actually dropped out, and I don't blame them in terms of the amount of information that's coming at you, and plus you're surrounded by all of these fantastic players. Of course, it can be inspiring and motivating, but it can also be very demotivating and depressing at the same time of how much you don't know as well too. But it was an invaluable experience, not only for the teachers that were there, but also the student body that were there too. So I was doing a lot of learning while I was at Humber College. I was also trying to play with as many people as possible. I was also trying to get into the working scene, the working musician scene in Toronto, trying to play local clubs. And at the time there were a lot of clubs playing like R&B, soul, funk music that had some absolutely incredible musicians. So I made that one of my goals to try to get to the level where I can actually play with those musicians. So in order to do that, I actually tried to go to these clubs as much as possible, and I would go there and I would take notes for songs that they were doing on a small notepad. One thing about those bands in particular, they had no sheet music. It was all just knowing the song from memory. And the interesting thing about these bands is sometimes they'll have a set band for the night, but some fellow musicians would come by to the club and they would swap out, say, the drummer that was actually playing the actual performance would actually swap with someone who came to see the show, just as like a guest performer. Like, and musicians call that sitting in, so sitting in with the band. So I would see that often, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I should probably do that one of these days. And so one night I headed to the club and I said, okay, I'm going to ask to sit in with the band. And the night that I went to this specific club, the guitar player, who was now the guitar player for Lady Gaga, was actually playing that night. So of course I got more nervous. I thought, oh, is this okay? But I thought, no, this is what I decided. I'm going to just do it, and if anything happens, I'll let the chips fall where they may, sort of thing. So I went to him, I said, yeah, would I be able to sit in for a song, play a song? And he said, oh, yeah. And we had actually met before, so it wasn't like I was some random person he didn't know. So they restarted their next set, and they're playing, and then the guitar player, he looked at me like, oh, you want to switch? Immediately I was like, oh my gosh, like, all right, this is it. I have to prove myself. So I got my guitar out of the case, and we were switching as they were playing another song. They were playing "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" is a song they were playing by Michael Jackson. And I plugged my guitar in. The band's playing. I'm able to get a groove for the song, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, this is it. I'm doing it. And then there's that break. If you're familiar with the song, there's a break, and then the singer says, guitar solo, and points at me. And at that moment I'm like, oh my gosh, what key is it? I don't know. So I just picked a note on the guitar, and it was absolutely the worst note I could ever have picked. And from there began probably one of the worst guitar solos I have ever played in my entire life. So the band's playing, I'm playing this terrible guitar solo, and then the band ends the song, da-da-da, and there's almost like silence, and then I look to the side of the stage, and there's the guitar player, the original guitar player. He looks at me, and he has this look like, oh my gosh. And my heart just sank. I'm like, oh my God, I just ruined everything. And after that, we did end up playing another song. I can't remember what song we ended up playing. I'm pretty sure we played a Georgie Porgy by Toto after. And then after we played that, the guitar player came back, and he kind of motioned like, okay, all right, let's change back. And I was devastated, absolutely devastated. And I was putting my guitar back in its case, and this guy came by, this drummer that I kind of knew in the scene. He came by and said, oh yeah, great playing. And I thought he was just being nice. I was like, oh yeah, thanks. But a few days later I had gotten a phone call from this vocalist, and he had left a message on my voicemail. and he said he had talked to the drummer friend that had said good job to me after I had sat in. And this vocalist was looking for a guitar player to go to Morocco with for 6 months with his band for a contract. And I was completely shocked after that. I was like, really? Like I can't believe after such a, at least what I thought was a terrible performance, that I would be lined up for something like that. So that was a very important lesson learned. You know, just put yourself out there. You'll never know what's going to happen. Even if you bomb terribly somehow, there's going to be something that's going to come out of that positive. So after that, by then I had graduated from Humber, and I joined this vocalist and his band. We played a little bit in Toronto, and then from there we went over. So we played in this club called the Lomstrong for 3 months. That was in Casablanca. And then we went over and played in this other club in Agadir for 3 months. So that was a very valuable experience. I played 3 sets of music 6 nights a week. And actually, while we were in Casablanca, the vocalist and I, we found a gig at an Italian restaurant. So the vocalist and I, we would play 2 sets at this Italian restaurant. And then after, we would go to the nightclub to play the 3 sets with the full band. So that was a great way to really hone my road chops as a working musician. But the other thing that was really valuable working in Casablanca is the gear that I had to use for 6 months was not that great. So it taught me a lot about how to get a good sound even though I don't have the best gear at my disposal. So then 6 months came and went, and when I came back to Toronto, I immediately started getting a lot of different offers. So I did some cross-Canada tours with a few bands, did some playing at some casinos down in the US, got into the wedding band scene, the gigging scene a little bit, and also did a lot of support works for some different artists. And the interesting thing about doing all of those different types of performances is it really taught me about how to adjust my guitar playing for different situations. Now, a little time after that passed, I started getting a little bit of an urge to leave Toronto, actually. Perhaps that was influenced by my experience in Morocco and doing a lot of touring. I can't say exactly, but it felt like I need to expand my horizons somehow. So I was actually thinking about moving to New York and seeing how the scene is there. But after visiting and looking at prices for things, also from some advice I had gotten from another guitar player, he was mentioning to me that it might not be the best idea unless I'm coming there to learn as opposed to work. So then I started thinking about Japan. Now, Japan was a place I'd always been interested in. I actually started studying Japanese in high school, and I was taking Japanese lessons at the time too. And I thought perhaps it would be a good idea to move to Japan for a year, go to Japanese school, and also maybe feel out the music scene a little bit. And then if anything, I can always just move back to Canada. So I came to Japan, started going to Japanese school, and also started attending a lot of the jam sessions around the Tokyo area. And the one thing I was really impressed by with Tokyo, at least, is that there's a lot of love for music. I think Japan as well too, especially jazz music, classical music. So then after Japanese school, I started teaching guitar almost immediately and started getting into some local bands, working bands. But then I started having that feeling again where I felt like I wasn't doing anything new. I felt almost like a little bit burnt out. By this point, I was doing a lot of covers, support work, playing other people's music. And I just had this feeling of being almost burnt out from music. So I got to this point where I actually quit the guitar. And it wasn't a conscious decision. I slowly started getting into translating. So for 2 years, I actually didn't play guitar at all. And I focused a lot of my efforts on becoming a translator, actually. So I did a lot of translations for different documents, did some subtitles for some dramas. And then 2 years later, I really felt the hunger to start playing again. And I think that's what I probably needed. I need to just reset everything and start doing some different things. So it was about 2019, I opened my own school, the Ontario Guitar Studio, and I started focusing primarily on writing and producing. Some of my music you can find on Spotify, YouTube, etc. And some stuff has been yet to be released, but will be released in the near future. I was actually planning on doing a lot of performing in 2020, but in 2020, that's when Corona happened, so a lot of that had to be put on hold for a while. But now that things are about over, that's something that I'm now moving forward with. And that's my general history as a guitar player. I hope you found it interesting. So regarding this channel, I'm going to be uploading a few new videos starting perhaps next week. So look forward to that. And thank you again for following me. 5,000 subscribers. Thank you to each and every one of you. And yeah, I'll see you at 10,000. Take care.